You're good. What agency are you with?
I'm the state attorney.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Your tag didn't come back. Never seen that before. I'm sorry? Yeah. We're good now.
So it was...
We ran the tag. I've never seen it before. A Florida tag. It's never come back to anything before. So that's the reason for the stop.
What was the tag run for?
I'm sorry?
What was the tag run for?
Oh, we run tags all the time, whether it's at traffic lights and that sort of stuff. That's how we figure out if, cars are stolen and that sort of thing. Also, the windows were really dark. I don't have a tint measurer, but that's another reason for the stop.
Do you guys have cards on you?
Yeah, 1 second. Actually, this isn't my car, but I can write my name down if you'd like.
Yeah, he put my name.
What's your employee number? 157. Ready? There you are. Have a good day.
This video captures one of the most revealing traffic stops in modern American history, but not for the reasons you might think. There is no screaming, no use of force, and no arrest. In fact, if you watch this on mute, you might think it was a perfectly friendly interaction. But beneath the polite surface lies a masterclass in how power, profiling, and legal loopholes actually work on the side of the road. We are looking at a driver who was pulled over for a reason that was so vague, so flimsy, and so legally questionable that it evaporates the moment the officer realizes who he is talking to. The driver isn't just anyone, she is Aramis Ayala, the state attorney for Florida's Ninth Judicial Circuit, the chief prosecutor for the very district where this stop is happening. When the officer walks up to that window, he thinks he is fishing for a violation. By the time he walks away, he realizes he just tried to bluff the person who writes the rulebook. But before we break down exactly how this stop falls apart, I want you to ask yourself a question. Have you ever been stopped by the police and felt deep down that the officer didn't really know why they stopped you until after they were already at your window? That feeling, that they are making it up as they go along, is what we call a pretextual investigation, and today we are going to dissect exactly how it works. Stay with me until the end of this analysis, because the most critical moment isn't the stop itself. It's the split-second decision the officers make when they realize who she is. That single moment reveals a terrifying truth about our legal system. Sometimes your freedom doesn't come from your rights as a citizen, but from your status as a VIP. And that should worry all of us. The anatomy of the stop. Let's start with the basics. To legally stop a car in the United States, the police need reasonable suspicion. This isn't just a hunch. It must be a specific, articulable fact that suggests a crime is happening or a traffic violation has occurred. You swerved, you ran a red light, your tag is expired. In this case, the justification offered is incredibly strange. The officer tells Ayala, "Your tag didn't come back," and then adds, "I've never seen that before." Let's pause right there. Is an officer's confusion a crime? Is a database error a crime? In the modern era of policing, patrol cars are equipped with technology that allows officers to run license plates constantly. They do this manually or with automatic license plate readers. The Supreme Court has ruled that you have no expectation of privacy in your license plate because it is displayed on the exterior of your vehicle. So, the act of running the tag is legal. But the act of stopping you based on a no record found result is a massive legal gray area. When the officer says, "I've never seen that before," he is admitting something crucial. He doesn't know what he has found. He hasn't seen a crime, he has seen a puzzle. He is stopping the car not to enforce the law, but to satisfy his curiosity. In legal terms, this borders on what defense attorneys call a fishing expedition. He is casting a line into the dark water to see if he hooks something, maybe a suspended license, maybe a warrant, maybe the smell of marijuana. But a question mark is not probable cause. Being confused by a Florida agency tag isn't reasonable suspicion of criminal activity. And this is why, almost immediately, you hear the officer pivot. This is a tactic you need to recognize. Watch how quickly he throws out a backup justification. As soon as the tag explanation lands with a thud, he adds, "Also, the windows are really dark. That's another reason for the stop. This is the safety net. In the legal world, we call this a pretextual stop. The Supreme Court case Horan v. United States essentially gave police the power to use minor technical violations, like window tint, a tire touching the white line, or a license plate light being out, as a legal excuse to pull you over, even if their real motivation is to investigate you for something else entirely. The window tint comment is the officer's insurance policy. He knows the tag argument is weak. He knows that "I was confused" might not hold up in court, so he throws in the tint, but notice the casual way he mentions it. He admits he doesn't have a tint meter. He is making a visual guess. He is stacking justifications, hoping one of them sticks. It's a classic quantity over quality approach to constitutional rights. The "we run tags all the time" admission. There is a moment in this footage that is surprisingly honest, and it tells us everything about the philosophy of this specific patrol unit. When Ayala presses him, gently but firmly asking, "What was the tag run for?" the officer replies, "Oh, we run tags all the time. That's how we figure out if, cars were stolen and that sort of thing." This is a moment of radical transparency. The officer is admitting to a strategy of mass surveillance. They are not looking for dangerous driving. They are not reacting to behavior. They are hunting. They are typing in plate numbers at random, or perhaps not so random, which we will get to in a minute, hoping for a hit in the database. It fundamentally changes the relationship between the citizen and the state. Instead of the police being a reactive force that shows up when you break the rules, they become a proactive force that is constantly scanning you to see if you might be breaking a rule they haven't found yet. Now consider the effectiveness of this strategy. If you cast a net that wide, you catch a lot of dolphins along with the tuna. You stop innocent people constantly, interrupting their lives, delaying their commutes, and spiking their blood pressure, all on the off chance that a database might ping. For the average driver, this explanation, "we run tags all the time," usually ends the conversation. We assume the police have a right to do it. We assume the technology is infallible. But Aramis Ayala knows better. She knows that "we do it all the time" is not the same thing as "it is constitutional." The pivot, when power shifts. Here is the scene that defense attorneys dream of. This is the payoff I mentioned earlier. Watch the body cam footage in your mind's eye. Watch the officer's demeanor. At the start, he is authoritative. He tells the passenger, "You going to go? I'll stay here." He is in command. He is processing a subject. He is the one asking the questions. Then Ayala identifies herself. She hands over her identification and says, "I'm the state attorney." There is a pause. It's brief, but it's heavy. You can almost feel the air leave the balloon. The officer's voice changes. "Oh, good." And then the magic words, "We're good now." Wait a minute. Let's apply some basic logic here. If the reason for the stop was that the tag didn't come back and he had never seen it before, how does knowing her job title solve that problem? Her being a state attorney doesn't magically make the tag appear in the database. It doesn't fix the clerical error. It doesn't explain why the system was blank. And what about the window tint? 5 seconds ago, the window tint was really dark, and another reason for the stop. Does her badge make the tint lighter? Does her title exempt her vehicle from Florida's tint laws? Of course not. If the tint was illegal before she spoke, it is illegal after she spoke. If the tag was suspicious before, it is suspicious now. So why does he let her go immediately? This is the smoking gun. The suspicion was never really about the car. The suspicion was about the driver. The officers were likely looking for a stolen car, a suspended driver, or someone with a warrant. They were looking for a criminal element. Once they realized the driver was the highest-ranking law enforcement official in the county, the suspicion evaporated. They weren't afraid of the tint anymore. They weren't curious about the tag anymore. They realized they had pulled over the boss, and they wanted to get out of that situation as fast as possible. This proves that the initial reasons, the tag and the tint, were merely keys to unlock the door. Once they opened the door and saw who was inside, they realized they had entered the wrong room and tried to back out politely. The question of profiling. We have to have a difficult, measured conversation about racial profiling here. It is the elephant in the room, or rather, the elephant on the side of the road. We cannot look into the hearts and minds of these specific officers. We cannot say with certainty, they stopped her because she is black. We do not have a recording of their internal thoughts. And in a court of law, proving racial bias in a single traffic stop is nearly impossible under current standards. However, we can look at patterns, we can look at indicators. Aramis Ayala is a black woman driving a nice car with tinted windows. The officers admit they ran her tag for no specific behavioral reason. She wasn't swerving, she wasn't speeding, she wasn't driving aggressively. They ran it because they run tags all the time. The question we have to ask, the question that requires us to be honest about policing in America, is this: which tags do they choose to run? In the vast flowing river of traffic, officers make split-second decisions about which license plates to type into their computers. Unconscious bias often directs these decisions. A beat-up sedan? Run it. A luxury car with dark tint? Run it. A minivan with a stick figure family on the back? Maybe skip it. If the selection of random tags is skewed by the race of the driver or the type of car associated with certain demographics, then the random check is not random at all. It is a technological form of profiling. It is digitizing bias. Furthermore, the "I've never seen that before" excuse is one that minority drivers hear disproportionately often. It is the language of othering. It suggests that the vehicle does not belong, that it is an anomaly that requires investigation. It suggests that the presence of this car in this place is inherently suspicious. Ask yourself this: if the driver of that car had been a 20-year-old black man in a hoodie instead of the state attorney in a business suit, would the officer have said, "We're good now," and walked away? Would he have ignored the window tint? Or would he have pulled out a tint meter? Would he have asked for a license? Would he have asked to search the car? Would he have asked, "Is there anything in the vehicle I should know about?" The fact that the stop ended so abruptly suggests that the officers knew they were on thin ice. They retreated not because the law was satisfied, but because the power dynamic had shifted. They realized that this driver had the power to scrutinize them. The danger of nothing happened. Now, I know what some of you are thinking. I can already see the comments. What's the big deal? They were polite, she was polite, no ticket was issued, no one was hurt. It's a nothing burger. And on the surface, you're right, it was polite. Civility was maintained. But stops where nothing happens are often the most dangerous kind for our civil liberties. When a traffic stop ends in violence, or shouting, or a broken window, it makes the news. We can clearly see the injustice. It is visceral. But when a stop ends with a polite "have a good day," the violation of rights is invisible. It is normalized. It becomes just another part of the day. If the police can stop anyone at any time based on a hunch about a license plate or a guess about window tint, then the Fourth Amendment is significantly weaker than we think. It means that the state has the power to interrupt your movement, demand your attention, and check your papers whenever they choose, provided they can find a minor technicality to justify it. This stop matters because it pulls back the curtain on the fishing expedition. It shows us that for many drivers, the road is not a free space of travel, but a corridor of constant surveillance where you exist at the mercy of an officer's boredom or curiosity. Ayala's reaction at the end is masterful. Watch how she handles the "have a good day." She doesn't just drive off. She asks for their cards. She asks for their badge numbers. She does not scream. She does not make a scene. She simply documents the encounter. This is the reaction of someone who knows that accountability is a paperwork game. She knows that by getting their names, she sends a message: "I see you. I know what you did, and I am watching." It is a subtle, professional, but incredibly powerful pushback. She asserts her status not to get out of a ticket. Remember, there was no ticket to get out of, but to check the power of the state. She is reminding them that they are public servants, and they are answerable for every stop they make. Broader implications: status versus rights. This brings us to the most uncomfortable realization of the entire video. Aramis Ayala drove away freely, but she didn't drive away freely because the system worked. She drove away freely because she was part of the system. If rights were truly equal, the stop would have ended the same way for a janitor, a student, or a nurse. If the legal justification for the stop was weak for the state attorney, it should be weak for everyone. But we know intuitively that isn't true. We know that if you don't have a badge to flash, or a title to drop, or a law degree to lean on, that officer likely stays at your window, he likely runs your license, he likely checks for warrants, he likely measures your tint, he likely extends the stop until he finds something or until he decides to let you go on his terms. This incident exposes a two-tiered justice system. There is the law, as it is written, which requires probable cause and reasonable suspicion, and there is the law as it is practiced, which often relies on the path of least resistance. When the resistance is low, a regular citizen who doesn't know their rights, the police push forward. When the resistance is high, a state attorney who knows the code, the police retreat. This is not how the Constitution is supposed to work. Your rights are not supposed to be dependent on your resume. You shouldn't have to be a prosecutor to be free from unreasonable seizure. The irony here is palpable. The officers stopped the one person in the entire county who could dismantle their justification with a single sentence. It was a statistical anomaly. But for every Aramis Ayala they stop, there are thousands of other drivers who are stopped for the exact same flimsy reasons, but who lack the power to make it end quickly. Those are the stops we don't see on viral videos. Those are the stops that result in tickets, fines, searches, and arrests. Those are the stops that erode trust between the community and the police. Conclusion. So, as we reflect on this video, I want us to look beyond the calm voices and the polite wave goodbye. I want us to look at the machinery of the stop itself. And the police are the gatekeepers of the criminal justice system. They decide who enters the system and who keeps driving. In this case, they tried to open the gate for Aramis Ayala, only to realize she was the one who held the keys to the building. But what about the rest of us? What about the people who don't have a badge, a title, or a law degree? When we are stopped for a tag that didn't come back, do we have the tools to push back? Do we have the confidence to ask, "Why exactly did you stop me?" Or do we simply hand over our ID and hope for the best? This video is a reminder that rights are like muscles. If you don't use them, they atrophy. But it is also a sober reminder that in the current American legal system, your rights often depend on who you are, who the officer thinks you are, and how much power you can project from the driver's seat. We should want a system where the reason for the stop is clear, objective, and connected to public safety, not a guessing game played with databases and window tint. We should want a system where curiosity is not enough to detain a citizen. So, I'll leave you with this final thought. If Aramis Ayala had been a regular citizen that night, no title, no badge, just a woman driving home, how does this video end? Does she get a warning? Does she get a ticket? Or does she become another statistic in the database of random stops? Let me know what you think in the comments. Have you ever had an officer give you a reason for a stop that just didn't sit right? And would you have had the courage to ask for their badge number?